Quick thoughts on UNLV. I'd say that it was. I think we were intending and expecting it to feel like a home game, but from the travel and the the logistics and everything and playing in the stadium for the first time, it wasn't quite that way. So, we're understanding now this is truthfully going to be and feel like a 12 away game season, and we have to kind of deal with it that way. As far as UNLV, they were ready to play a little bit earlier than we were, and I think our staff as a whole was disappointed. We got off to a little bit of a slow start defensively. Thought we did a good job on the opening drive offensively. When we look back at the plan, we like the game plan. We like what we were doing and what we had schemed up. Thought we got behind a little bit early on, and so we were playing catch up on offense. We did have a couple guys get nicked up early, which was a little bit of adversity we didn't expect, and that's football. And so we did have some guys step up. Coco Brown stepped up and did some nice things for us. Mabry came in and struggled early, and then got in a little bit of a rhythm in the second half, and finished a little bit better than he had started. And that's what you hope, that these new guys progress as they go through. Was a disappointing loss for our team, and it was one we felt like very similar to opening day, in that we were on the field with an opponent that is a good opponent that we respect, but we had a better opportunity to win a ball game in both weeks 1 and 2, and we didn't get it done. And so that's that falls back on our staff and ultimately me. And right now, I think what I'm really, really happy about with regards to our team is it's just been a complete refocus, and we've been thinking about Hawaii since we started on Hawaii, and obviously we're going to emphasize some of the mistakes we made in the first 2 games, and we're going to manage and attack our strategy with regards to dealing with this trip, because it's quite unique heading to Hawaii. It's a 9-hour flight on Thursday. It's a no practice Thursday, which is very abnormal. And so there are some things calling around to some other coaches who have experience going to Hawaii that you don't necessarily plan for unless you talk and do the research. You talk to people who've already gone through it. And so I think we've got a good plan to travel the team. I like our plan on the field. We just had a great practice this morning, and we're looking forward to kicking off at 6 p.m. on Saturday, which to us will actually feel like 11 p.m. Just another one of those things to overcome heading out to Hawaii.
All right, guys, we'll start taking some questions. I think pretty much everyone knows the drill here. Hand raise function for any questions to get going. And we'll start off with our first question today from Lane Pops.
Hey, Coach. You said you was talking to a lot of different coaches about kind of some insight on how to play this type of game. What's the most useful piece of advice that stood out most to you on just going on that fact finding mission?
Well, what's been interesting to our staff is when we've done staff-wide, we all know coaches on other staffs that have traveled to Hawaii. We smart enough to know that this trip is different than a typical away trip. There's a reason there's an NCAA rule that you can play a 13th game, because you have Hawaii on your schedule. There's a reason a lot of people try to schedule Hawaii in and around a bye week, because of the wear and tear from the travel piece of this game. They're a really good football team. Greatly improved over last year. They've done a really good job developing their program in a year's time. Respect that, actually, and they've done a good job of completely changing the complexion of their team. Right now is very different than last year. So we from a research standpoint, we understand what's going to happen physically to our bodies on the plane for an 8-9 hour deal. We understand how important hydration is. We've got a plan in place for flexibility and mobility and rolling out and getting our bodies back to where they need to be. It typically takes 48 hours after a flight like that. We have a plan to try to recover and get where we need to be in 36, which means it'll be 12 hours prior to kickoff. And I think we like the plan. We've got it in place. There's a lot of different things that would bore you, but that we are putting in place right now to manage this trip. so that our only focus can be executing, after kickoff.
Question from Jonathan Buck.
Hey, Coach. Someone asked on Friday what your fourth quarter takeaways were, and now that you've had some chance to look at some film, I was wondering if you could answer that question again from a more technical standpoint, so you've had time to look at the film.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's two things on both sides of the ball. Defensively, we needed to generate more of a pass rush. We do have some talented players in the secondary, but you make life a lot harder when you can't get the quarterback off a spot and you can't pressure. Coach Lindsey has alluded to this a few times. It's not always the sack statistic either. It's getting them off their platform. It's forcing them to throw on the move. It's getting shots on him, legal shots on him, as he's throwing the ball, those types of things. And we've got to do a better job defensively there. And I just felt like we were a little lethargic coming out of the blocks first quarter defensively. I didn't think we covered ground and played with the speed that we have. So, those are the two things that ring in my mind as I was evaluating our game and going through it with the staff. And then offensively, there were actually a few bright spots, but we did not have continuity at quarterback. It wasn't even Hunter coming out because he had gotten they ripped his helmet off and slammed his head down on the ground, and so he came out for a little bit, and that gave Mabry an opportunity. But it was just the continuity from play to play, the play-to-play focus at quarterback from Hunter and from Mabry while the two of them were out there. Those two collectively didn't grade out well for the game. They know it. There's plays they'd like to have back. Some of them were new situations, which is going to happen in every game. Some of them are the things that we practice and focus on all the time, and those are the things you'd like to see done on a more consistent basis. And as the guy who's coaching the quarterbacks, I've got to make sure that we get that addressed, heading into Hawaii. The second thing I would say is I would like to have more production at the receiver position. We've got to do a better job using our hands. We have to do a better job separating. The run after catch stuff is that will come because we have the ability to do that. But we've got to do a better job pre-ball, pre-throw, with regards to getting open and creating separation. And then the one lone bright spot I thought team-wise was we played hard for 4 quarters. The attitude was great on the sideline. The mentality was good in the fourth quarter. We had some juice in the fourth quarter. It created some plays. Special teams made a couple. Defense got a couple stops. Offense moved the ball a little bit more. We got some points on the board. And then from an individual standpoint, I'd say out of all of the positional rooms, felt like the offensive line took a major step from game 1 to game 2. And it certainly wasn't a perfect game by any stretch, but there was considerable improvement by numerous offensive linemen between games 1 and 2, and that obviously bodes well for our team.
One from Carlos Zimmerman.
Coach, now that Mabry's had a chance to just cut his teeth and get some involvement out there in live ball play, just some things you'll be looking at of him this week leading up to the game and what his involvement will look like on Saturday.
So I tell you the same thing I tell them. They both need to prepare to start every week, and they need to be ready to play, whether they're out there on the first play or they take over halfway through the second quarter. Whatever the situation is, we need them both to prepare like starters, and we actually challenged Landon Locke to do the same thing. But those top 2 guys are getting the most reps, and so that's going to be our approach moving forward until one of them separates himself from the other. And if they're both productive, I'll play both of them. In 2014 while we were here, 2015, I needed to do that also. The 2014, our quarterback was the conference player of the year, and then, JJ, and then we come back in 15, and Jeremiah Briscoe comes on to the scene, and, he plays well, and so we wound up playing both of them. And then in 16, it's all Briscoe, and he's the conference player of the year. So you've got a situation where we want to use all our weapons. If we have 2 weapons at quarterback, then we plan on using them both. And just like any other position, if you've got somebody there with a hot hand, we're going to roll with them for a while. So that'll be the approach, I think, just about the rest of the season.
Let's get a question from our friend from the island, Stephen Sy, joining us from
Coach.
Yeah.
It sounds like you have a really good plan for how to prepare for this game. I was just wondering, have you ever crossed the paths with Timmy Chang's offense or Dennis Thurman's defense in the past? And how do you simulate in practices going against a quick four-wide offense?
So I have not met Timmy Chang. Have a lot of respect for him. I love what he does offensively. I've studied it, watched it, and I'm pretty familiar with what they do. Overall, I'd say that it's hard. I think when you don't do anything that overlaps in practice to help your defense from an offensive standpoint, but there is considerable overlap in the passing game, and so for us to show some of the things we do that is similar, it's helpful for the defense. And then obviously you have to simulate the rest of it. So it's really no different approach than anything else. But I don't know Tim. I'm very fond of the stuff he does, and obviously know how successful he's been with it.
Question from Colton Foster.
Yeah, just with that offense, how do you kind of combat fatigue against them, knowing they're going to throw the ball for a bulk of the game?
Well, there's Jay Bateman told me one time at North Carolina, the best way to defend any of that is to get your team off the field. 3 and outs is the key. And because I was talking to him about tempo and the number of plays, and his direct comment was, we have an opportunity to get off the field in 3 downs every time we take the field. And the more we do that, the more it bodes well for the offensive side, particularly when they're, when it is a tempo offense or it just happens to be a game where there's a lot of plays, which is a different response than some defensive coaches. And I think Coach Lindsey, I don't think is any different. There's a job to do when you go out there. You obviously want to do well on 1st and 2nd down and earn the right to play on 3rd down where you can pull the trigger on some things. And get the other team, the opponent, off the field. And I don't think the approach here will be any different.
Question from Ben Soles.
Yeah, Coach, I know you said post-game there were a few guys on offense and defense that kind of stepped up in a role that you maybe didn't think they would be in. And you mentioned Coco Brown on offense. Who on defense were maybe a few guys that stepped up and surprised you on that day?
So defensively, Tokyo did a great job, at linebacker, and I think, his role is going to increase. And I think we realized we found a guy defensively that we can count on and that can make some plays, and that is, he's proven that when he's out there from a play versus production standpoint, there's a good correlation there. So you'll see his role increase, as we move forward. And then, the other one on offense was Dylan Burke, tight end, that played in the second half a good amount. Thought he played hard, thought he played really physical. And, he's almost 6'7", and he came in a little light, and we put some weight on him. And the taller, longer guys are typically not the guys that are the ones that want to get their hands inside and be ultra physical, but he is. And he's got good hands, and he's got good range at tight end. So he's a guy I think that we will utilize more, just like Tokyo, as we head into the season.
Colton Foster.
For a game like this, how important is it going to be to get a run game going with kind of an Elijah Green or a landing Coco Brown, or if you can able to get Alton back this week?
Well, I think the run game is pivotal every week. I think being one-dimensional, no matter how good you are offensively, I think the more one-dimensional you are, the easier you make it for the defense. I don't know that everybody has that opinion. That's just mine. That's ours philosophically here. So we want, balance to us is not, 40 runs and 40 passes. Balance to us is equal distribution as much as you can get it to all the weapons that you have in the offense. And whether that's throwing it or pitching it or handing it off, it doesn't matter. We want to distribute the ball to all of our skill players, but there's an importance to the run game. I think you've got to establish some physicality. You've got to establish that you can run the ball, not even necessarily throughout the game, but run the ball when you need to run the ball. Run the ball in a 4-minute situation at the end of the game. Run the ball on first down to keep yourself, on schedule from a drive standpoint. Run the ball on third down and 1, 4th and 1 when you've got to go get a yard, and that's the highest percentage way to do it. There's got to be a physicality piece to your team. And then there are days, as you guys have seen over the years at numerous different places that we've been with this offense, is if the running game is what we do best, then we'll ride that wave. And so I think we have some talented RBs here. We like them. We think there's 3 or 4 that can start for us, and so we want to roll through and use them. And I think as the season rolls on here, you'll realize the run game is going to be a big part of the offense.
Back over to Steven.
Coach, I just wanted to get your reaction to what you think of Michael Alejandro, and is he compared to any quarterback you've seen in the past?
I think did you ask me about the quarterback in Hawaii?
Yeah, Michael Alejandro.
Yeah. I would say this: the quarterback at every team kind of interests me, and I usually I had a head coach in the past that used to ask me to evaluate the quarterback of the opponent just to give kind of a write-up or an opinion on the talent base of each QB, and that habit has kind of stuck with me. And now in this head coaching role, I'm obviously as concerned with who we're facing on both sides of the ball, and so that's a position I watch, and I've done it here also. I from what I understand, he played well. I thought he played well in the opening game, and I don't know where he is injury-wise, but I believe he did not play the entire game last week. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. He came out in the fourth quarter.
So up until then, I thought he's a talented kid, throws the ball well. He obviously has a very good grasp of the offense. That's probably the thing that I noticed the most. You can evaluate him from a talent standpoint, but I can think of a few very talented quarterbacks right now that didn't necessarily fare well in the system that they're playing in because they didn't look comfortable when I watched them this weekend playing in those systems. I thought that your quarterback at Hawaii looks like he knows the system well. He's been in it for a while. He understands it. He can answer problems. And I think that's going to be a big challenge for us to try to slow him down defensively.
Back over to Colton.
Earlier this year, you've already seen a pass-heavy offense with Western Kentucky. Does playing another pass-heavy offense, and what can you kind of take from that Western Kentucky game?
You'd like to say, we're going to go back to the pass rush. I mean, that's always going to be a key against a team like that. But I would like to say that there's some overlap with Western Kentucky and Hawaii, but offensively, they're just very different. They're very different, and the quarterbacks are very different. But I do think whether it's the pass game or the run game on either side of the football, your team is going to live and die by how well your O and D line play. And I think you've got to, as old of a cliche as this is in the sport of football, I think it's very hard to win consistently when you don't win consistently at the line of scrimmage. Like offensively, you can do some things logistically. You can do things schematically, X's and O's to take the pressure off your O-line. But they get exposed when you get in the red zone. You've got to be able to lean on the O and D line in the red zone. That's really where you're going to win it. That's where you're going to get 7 over 3. And so at the end of the day, even on offense where you can kind of skirt it a little bit and do some things to help them, you can't hide them in the red zone. So defensively, I don't believe you're going to stop many people. I don't think you're going to slow many people down if you can't control the line of scrimmage on the D-line. We all know that staff-wise. The guys know that. And so, you try to put these guys in a position to make some plays against the opponent that you're playing. Obviously, Hawaii presents different issues than UNLV did. And so that's what they're working on right now in practice. But, simply put, we need to continue to get better up front on both sides. We need to be productive on both sides. That's where winning is going to start for this football team.